And when Caitlin Clark fights back, the entire basketball world stops and watches. This is the moment that has everyone talking. The moment that sent social media into a frenzy. The moment that had fans divided, analysts debating, and the internet absolutely exploding. We're talking about a heated sideline exchange between Clark and her head coach that was caught on camera during the Fever's brutal 184 loss to the Portland Fire. A moment where frustration boiled over. Where tensions reached a breaking point. Where the face of the league and her coach went head-to-head in full view of the world. But here's the thing, this wasn't just about one game. This was about everything that had been building for weeks. The pressure. The expectations. The injuries. The scrutiny. The weight of an entire league on a 22-year-old's shoulders. Clark had been struggling. Her shooting was off. Her defense was under fire. The Fever were playing like a .500 team, and she knew it. And when she got benched at halftime of a game that was slipping away, something inside her snapped. The cameras caught it all. White confronting Clark. Clark throwing her arms up. Teammates trying to calm her down. White pulling her from the bench and putting in a rookie. Clark standing behind her coach, shaking her head, frustration written all over her face. But here's what happened next, and this is where the story gets really interesting. Clark didn't just sit there and take it. She pushed back. She made it clear that she wasn't going to be silenced. And then, just days later, she did something that silenced every single critic. A historic performance. A career-high 45 points and 10 assists. The first player in WNBA history to reach both marks in the same game. And when asked about her minutes restriction, she said something that sent shockwaves through the league. "Steph knows better than that," Clark said. They would get an earful. That's right. Clark made it clear that nothing, not even her coach, was going to keep her off the court when the game was on the line. In this video, we're going to break down everything. The confrontation. The benching. The backlash. The historic comeback. And what this all means for Clark, White, and the future of the Indiana Fever. Because this isn't just a story about a sideline spat. This is a story about a superstar who refuses to back down. Let's get into it. It was a Saturday night in Portland. The Indiana Fever were on the road, taking on the expansion Portland Fire. And from the very beginning, nothing was going right. Caitlin Clark was having one of the worst games of her career. She finished with a season-low 6 points on 1 for 7 shooting, with no three-pointers made, and just 22 minutes of action. She was in foul trouble all night. She couldn't find her rhythm. And the Fever were getting blown out. Then came the moment that changed everything. During a timeout in the second half, cameras caught Clark and head coach Stephanie White engaged in what appeared to be a heated verbal exchange. Clark was seen putting her arms up, responding to something White had said. Teammates Kelsey Mitchell and Mikala Timpson tried to calm her down. And then, White made a decision that stunned everyone. She pulled Clark from the bench and told rookie Raven Johnson to take her seat. Clark stood behind her coach, shaking her head, visibly frustrated. The tension was palpable. And the cameras caught every second of it. The video went viral within hours. Social media exploded. Fans were divided. Some defended White, saying she was just coaching. Others defended Clark, saying she had every right to be frustrated. And some, of course, started speculating about a rift between the two. But here's what actually happened, according to both Clark and White. White later explained that she was simply challenging a player, her job as a coach. Clark was in foul trouble. The team was struggling. And White needed to make adjustments. She later said, "I was challenging a player. It's coaching. My relationship with Caitlin is great. We're both competitive, we're both stubborn, we're more alike than different." Clark, for her part, downplayed the incident almost immediately. She called it two people being competitive, two people that really want to win, and pushed back against it being described as a blow-up. But the damage was done. The internet had already made up its mind. And the speculation was just beginning. Within hours of the video going viral, the internet was at war. Clark's fans, who are among the most passionate in all of sports, rushed to defend her. They accused White of being too harsh, of blaming Clark for the team's struggles, of trying to humble the superstar instead of supporting her. Some even went further, questioning whether White was the right coach for the Fever. Fake reports circulated that White had been fired, reports that went so far that even Skip Bayless fell for them. But White's defenders were just as vocal. They argued that Clark needed to be coached hard, that she needed to learn discipline, that she couldn't expect special treatment just because she was the face of the league. The debate raged on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and every sports network in the country. Analysts weighed in. Former players gave their takes. The story dominated sports media for days. And then, the legends spoke. Cheryl Miller, one of the greatest players in women's basketball history, weighed in on the incident. She said, "Right now, it's frustration. And unfortunately, it's boiling over and it's being seen. It's one thing to have it behind closed doors, but when it spills over, and when the coach has to basically say, you know what, Caitlin, enough is enough, this is too disruptive, in and out, take a seat." Her analysis was measured. She recognized the frustration on both sides. And she made it clear that this wasn't the end of the world, it was just basketball. Sue Bird, another legend, echoed that sentiment. She said, "I agree. I think it's frustration. I'm not the best lip reader, but I feel like Stephanie White did say defense a couple times, and Caitlin Clark was in foul trouble this game. I think it is a lot of frustration, but it's also not that crazy. This isn't the first time we've seen this. It doesn't have some deeper meaning to it. I've had moments like that with coaches. I think it speaks to relationships, player-coach relationships." Bird's point was crucial. This wasn't the first time a player and coach had a heated exchange. And it wouldn't be the last. But because it was Caitlin Clark, the most scrutinized player in the league, it became a national story. The Fever, meanwhile, were trying to move on. But the media wouldn't let them. Every press conference, every interview, every practice was dominated by questions about the incident. And Clark, who had been trying to stay focused on basketball, was forced to address it again and again. On Monday, just 2 days after the incident, Clark and White addressed the media together. And they were unified in their message, everything was fine. Clark started by pushing back against the speculation. She said, "I think a lot of those things happen all the time. I know there's a camera on me and that's how it's going to be, but there are a lot of people out there in the media or on TV that think they know a lot of things and they're just blatantly wrong about a lot of things." She made it clear that she and White were on the same page. "I ride with Steph, I ride for these girls. Steph has my back more than anybody. Nobody in our locker room, or Steph, or our coaching staff, thought twice about it." Then she went deeper. She explained why her relationship with White was so strong. She recalled a moment from the previous season, when she had suffered a season-ending groin injury against the Connecticut Sun. "When I got hurt at the Connecticut game last year, I bawled in Steph's arms," Clark said. "Those are the moments that people don't see. Me and Steph both know what it is, and that's somebody who I will always ride for. She had my back when really nobody else did." That quote was powerful. It showed that Clark and White's relationship was built on trust, not tension. That the sideline exchange was just a moment of competitive fire, not a sign of a deeper rift. White echoed those sentiments. She said, "My relationship with Caitlin is great. I love Caitlin. I ride with her." She explained that the exchange was just coaching, nothing more. "What happened in that moment is I was challenging a player. It's coaching. It's what it is." I don't often think it becomes an issue if you're watching it in men's sports most of the time. White also addressed the media's obsession with Clark. She said, "We can't control the outside narrative. We can't control where people choose to take a snippet of an instance in a game or whatever it might be and run with it. We know that people are always going to have an opinion about what we're doing in here. People are always going to have an opinion about Caitlin. It's the reality of the world we live in, the reality of the job we have. But it's not the reality of what the relationship is like." Teammate Lexi Hull also weighed in, saying the incident wasn't even a blip on the team's radar. "That's part of the game," Hull said. "There's frustrations that rise, and decisions have to be made, and ultimately, this wasn't something that carried on." Clark and White had said their piece. The air was cleared. But the critics weren't satisfied. They wanted drama. They wanted conflict. And they weren't going to let the story die. So Clark did the only thing she could. She let her game speak for her. Just days after the sideline incident, Clark delivered a performance that silenced every single critic. It was a Friday night in Indianapolis. The Fever were hosting the Seattle Storm. And Clark was playing under a minute's restriction because of a lingering back issue. White had made it clear that Clark would be on a limited schedule. But Clark had other plans. She told White at halftime, "I felt really good and I didn't want to lose this game." And then she went out and delivered one of the greatest performances in WNBA history. Clark finished with a career-high 45 points and 10 assists, becoming the first player in WNBA history to reach both marks in the same game. She shot 11 of 18 from the field, made 6 three-pointers, and converted 17 of her 19 free throw attempts. She also added 2 rebounds, 4 steals, and 2 blocks. When the Fever needed her most, Clark delivered. She hit a crucial late three-pointer that helped the Fever hold on for a dramatic 110-107 victory. And when asked about the minutes restriction after the game, she didn't hold back. "Steph knows better than that," Clark said. "Trainers know better than that. They would get an earful." She made it clear that nothing, not even her coach, was going to keep her off the court when the game was on the line. "There was no way I was ever coming out of the game in the fourth quarter," she said. It was a statement performance. A declaration that Caitlin Clark was still Caitlin Clark, regardless of the drama, the scrutiny, or the pressure. And it was a message to everyone who had doubted her: she wasn't going anywhere. So where does all of this leave the Indiana Fever? The sideline incident. The backlash. The historic comeback. It all adds up to one thing: Caitlin Clark is under more pressure than any player in the league, and she's handling it better than anyone could have expected. Clark acknowledged the weight of that pressure in her press conference. She said, "There's immense amount of pressure, and sometimes that pressure can get you and frustrate you in different ways. I want to win. This team wants to win, and I'm the point guard, so it's on me to help this team and this franchise win." White, for her part, has been consistent in her support for Clark. She has acknowledged that Clark wants to be coached hard, and that she's willing to coach her hard in return. "We're both competitive, we're both stubborn, we're more alike than different," White said. "Hopefully we continue to bring the best out of each other." The Athletic reported that the shared belief from league sources validates Clark and White's assertion that this type of exchange is not atypical between a player and coach in the heat of competition. Multiple sources across the league confirmed that there is no validity to any report that White's job is in question. So what's next for the Fever? They need to find consistency. They need to build on Clark's historic performance. And they need to navigate the relentless scrutiny that comes with having the biggest star in the league. Clark's message to her team is simple: I have to be better. She takes responsibility for the team's struggles. She critiques herself more than anyone. And she's determined to lead the Fever to success. "That's on me," Clark said. "I know that, and I take that on my shoulders, and I critique myself more than anybody." The Fever are currently 4-4, a .500 team. They have the talent to be much better. And with Clark leading the way, they have the potential to make a deep playoff run. But that potential won't be realized without leadership. Without trust. Without the kind of tough love that White showed Clark on that bench in Portland. Because here's the truth, Clark and White aren't enemies. They're allies. Two competitive, stubborn, driven women who want the same thing, to win. And if the sideline incident taught us anything, it's that Clark isn't afraid to fight, for herself, for her team, and for her coach. That's what makes her great. And that's what makes the Fever dangerous.